India's central bank has become the latest to warn of the perils of Bitcoin, following in the footsteps of China, France and Norway. India's central bank warned users of the virtual currencies they're exposing themselves to potentially devastating losses. The country's biggest Bitcoin trading platform suspended operation following the banker's caution. A statement from the Reserve Bank of India: there is no underlying or backing of any asset for VCs as such, VCs, virtual currencies. As such, their value seems to be a matter of speculation. Let's just look at that again. As such, their value seems to be a matter of speculation. I'm joined now from Seattle by Patrick Merck of the Bitcoin Foundation. Patrick, as such, their value seems to be a matter of speculation.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I think that the value really is a matter of how valuable you think Bitcoin as a protocol for moving money around the world at very low cost, instantaneously, how valuable that is, because that's essentially what you're buying into when you buy a Bitcoin, the utility of it as a payment network.
But the thing about the problem that everybody, and you've answered these questions a gazillion times, so I don't suddenly expect you to say, I've seen the light, Bitcoin is dreadful. But the concern for regulators and for central banks is that it is outside their jurisdiction. And you can understand that concern.
Well, sure, I understand their concern to a degree, but there's a lot of benefit to that as well in the way that that's set up. And while we're saying that the Bitcoin network, the protocol, is outside of their jurisdiction, there are operators in the space that are within their jurisdiction. There's one pattern I've seen from regulators and policymakers over time. It's that at first they don't understand Bitcoin at all and they don't pay it any mind. Then when they first look at it, they say, well, that looks a little bit scary. And then as they gain an understanding of it, they come to realize all the benefits, the job creation, the economic growth, the benefit of connecting people to a global economy. They see all those benefits and they come to really appreciate Bitcoin and start to become supportive of it. We saw this exact same thing play out in the U.S. We're seeing it play out in the EU.
Well, I
wouldn't
say the EU. I mean, the US hearings in Congress was lukewarm at best. The EU is still very firmly, sitting on the fence. So they're not exactly rushing to redenominate their euros into bitcoins.
Well, I think the hearings were pretty successful, and in my conversations with the regulators and policymakers in D.C., I think we're seeing a very positive, supportive response. I think people really understand the benefit here of using these systems to actually move people who are trapped in cash-based informal economies into a globally connected digital economy. You can't do that through the traditional financial system.
I think one of the fascinating parts, and I've looked at Bitcoin a bit in the coverage of the story, is this whole idea of the algorithm that can only create so many Bitcoins, and we all want to know what happens at the end of that when the 20-odd million are created. And then on top of that, you've got these people busy mining away for the chain of integrity and the chain and the blocks and all this sort of stuff. It's a very weird way to run a currency.
Yeah, well, the mining is actually quite fascinating. Mining is maybe a term that's not as descriptive as it should be of the activity that's really happening. What you've done is you've created a distributed network of computers that takes the role on of traditional financial intermediaries without having to trust any of them. So they go and they do all this work with all this processing power to secure the network and process transactions, and they essentially do it, and the incentive scheme for them is that they get paid in Bitcoin itself. That will change over time, and it should change to a more fee-based structure. And that's what you'll see as the number of Bitcoins that are issued starts tailing off. It's actually it's a very elegant solution to how you bootstrap a payment system that's completely distributed and global off the ground.
We'll talk more about this, and indeed, I have to go and find a miner to actually watch the mining and actually see how they do it, because apparently it's one of those difficult things. Good to talk to you. Have a happy